it's electric. But the chances are, if you've clicked into this review, then you probably already knew it. And we're going to try and put the fact that it's called a Mustang aside here, because at the end of the day, this is a very good standalone, fully electric SUV. It just happens to have a controversial name. Now, this is the DoneDeal YouTube channel. My name's David OC, and today we're going to be reviewing this car, going for a drive, talking about the real world range, the different motors, power outputs that you can have, and of course, looking at the fit and finish, the space, and all of the usual things that we do in every review. So please make sure to subscribe, and if you'd like to search for Fords for sale in Ireland from over 1,000 trusted dealerships nationwide, then you can hit the link up there. Let's begin with the price, because I'm gonna have to say it. Let's find out how Fordable it is. My bad jokes will resume for the next 12 minutes. Now, this starts at about 65,000 euros. That's for the smaller battery, rear wheel drive, and it can be spec'd all the way up to into the 90s, which is a lot of money for a Ford, and I think that's why they've branded this as a Mustang, to give it that more premium feel. And I will say, when we go for a drive and when you sit in it and you feel the build quality, it does actually feel like a 70 or 80,000 euro car. In terms of styling, personally, I'm a big fan of it. I like how it's quite simplistic in many ways, but also a little bit extravagant. So let's begin by the front. Quite plain, obviously there's no grille, and I think Ford have done a good job of that. Then as we make our way along the side, from the side profile, if you were to cut the bottom off, it does actually look like a Mustang, to be fair to it. It's almost a Mustang on stilts, and I promise that's the last time I reference an old Mustang. The handles, the doors, these are really, really cool. You just press a button, and actually one cool thing is that there's a code that you can enter. So if you don't want to bring your keys with you, just nice thing. It's very American, but it's cool to see that in Ireland. And then it sweeps back down, although there is an invisible line here, and the two-tone helps to separate that. And then around the rear, you've got those, I said it again, those Mustang rear lights, but they look brilliant. And of course, it's an electric tailgate. Inside the boot, behind the electric tailgate, is 402 litres of storage. What's more is it's quite cleverly laid out with a 12-volt socket, virtually no load lip, and a little bit of underfloor storage too. Up the front, there's also 81 litres of storage, which is great for charging cables and also putting the takeaways in there. Another thing to note is this is actually where you top up your windscreen washer fluid. So in terms of engines, or let's say electric motors and batteries, it's quite simple, but it can get very complicated when you bring in range and which motor versus which battery you get. So I'm going to try and make it as black and white as possible. There are two battery sizes. One is a 70 kilowatt hour battery, and the other, the long range one, is a 91 kilowatt hour battery. There's also two different drivetrains. So the entry level one is rear wheel drive, which is single motor, but you can also get an all wheel drive dual motor version. At home, you should definitely be able to charge up overnight, and in fact I'd advise getting a home charger, and for every electric car that's almost essential. But if you are on the move and you do decide to charge it up, if you can get a fast charger, and Ionity is probably your best bet in Ireland, you should be able to gain up to 100 kilometers every 10 minutes, which is very, very impressive. Now, finally a chance to look at the interior, and this is where the car really begins to feel the price that it's worth. So the seats, whatever they've done with the cushioning, so comfortable. Loads of knee space, good bit of headroom despite it having a panoramic sunroof, little bit of storage in there, USB and USB-C charging points, so kind of future-proofing the car. And I like to have the option. There is of course a nice drink holder and armrest here, and it feels pretty well built and solid. There is also ISOFIX points, two here in the rear, none in the front seat. And actually, I was only thinking the other day, there's not many cars with 3 ISOFIX points, which means people have triplets. Just never mind all the other problems they're going to have. Finding a car for them is going to be hard enough. But yeah, as a whole, it is really spacious, really, really comfortable. But the driver's seat's where we really want to be, so let's go there. So again, in here, it does just feel all really, really good quality. On the dash, the armrest, and then there's this massive 15-inch screen. So To begin with, before we get to the screen, let's just talk about the layout in here. Here you have an armrest, it lifts up and there's loads of storage down there with a 12-volt socket. You've got drink holders here, wireless charging, and again, USB and USB-C. I really, really like that. Glove box there, door bins on the side. As a whole, it is very functional, very practical. Now, in front of me here, I've got a smaller screen which just tells me the key info, my battery percentage, my range, my speed, and that's about it. It's also like seat belts and a few different small things. Then there's this, the main screen, and it's very Tesla-esque, but in a good way. In fact, I maybe kind of prefer it to a Tesla. It works really, really well. So the reality is, most of the time when you have one of these cars, you're going to use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. It's going to connect up automatically, wirelessly, and it's going to work seamlessly. However, the system itself does work quite well. There's lots of different settings you can change. You can also go into the driving modes and change your driving assistance and all sorts of stuff. My advice, go down to your local Ford dealership and play around with it there when you go out for a test drive, because if you try and watch this video, there's no way I'll get all the information into it. But just trust me, it's really, really good. Couple things to point out. The climate control is on it, which normally I don't like, but it's pretty easy to use. And actually all specs of the car come with heated seats and heated steering wheels, which is just brilliant. There is a button over here to do your kind of max blower, which is just a quick button if it's early in the mornings. And not only does this look cool, it's also a functional volume knob. Really, really like that. So as a whole, the fit and finish in here is brilliant. Last couple of things to point out on the steering wheel. On the left-hand side, I have everything to do with my driving. So my cruise control, which is adaptive, and also my lane assist, which we'll talk about when we go for a drive. And then on my right, it's all to do with my music and my phone, my volume, skip the track. All very intuitive, all very easy to use. The seat, fantastically comfortable. But I think we should go for a drive. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change it into untamed. So basically eco mode is called whisper, and then there's active, which I presume is comfort, and then untamed, which is sport. And listen to the noise as I accelerate. Does sound quite cool. Now, being an electric car, obviously it's very, very snappy. I've been fortunate to drive a few different variants, everything from the rear wheel drive to the all-wheel drive and both battery sizes. And I will say they're all pretty quick, but they also all instill confidence in you as a driver. You're not worried about the back end slipping out, which sometimes I worry about, particularly with some cars that are over 200 horsepower. The suspension, oddly firm, I'm going to say. Very smooth, definitely feels very, very solid, structurally sound, but just a little bit firm and sporty. Now, that aside, the driving aids. This is just next level on this. I have to say, Ford have done a fabulous job of the driving aids. The adaptive cruise control is very, very good, but really it's the lane assist that sets it apart. It kind of has what I like to call two stages. The first is when you're on a motorway and you maybe veer out of your lane, it will just bounce back off, keeping you in your lane. The second stage is full-blown, almost autonomous driving, and what that does is it keeps you centered, but it does it in a really unintrusive, organic way that's actually quite easy to live with and very, very good. So that's a big, big plus for me. Driving it, again, parking so easy. This one's got really big cameras on all angles, also the overhead 360 camera, which just means you can see where the curbs are, which, fingers crossed, should stop you from curbing it. But as a whole, to drive, lovely. Naturally, it's an electric car, and you do feel like the urge to push down on that right pedal. Now, for something that could have a 91 kilowatt hour usable battery, it's not as quick as a Tesla or something like that, but nonetheless, it's still very quick, and chances are this will be faster than whatever car you had previously, and it has more than enough power. Then lastly, I always like to talk about the way a car makes you feel, because this does feel the value, and I know I've said that a few times throughout the review, but it really, really does. This big screen, and then again here having a small little sleek screen, the way the seats hold you, it just feels very, very premium. And it's not something that I would normally always associate with Ford. Sometimes a little bit of plastic can kind of show up, but in this it's very, very good. One thing I also want to touch on is there is an option for about 600 or 700 euros to get a tow bar. Now, similarly, I had the same bone to pick with the BMW iX3, and that is that the towing capacity is, on both of them, 750 kgs, which isn't a whole lot. So probably if you're looking to tow, currently right now, a lot of these EVs aren't quite there. You're probably better off with a diesel, but the reality is most people watching this review aren't too interested in towing capacity, but I just did want to mention it. It's an electric car. Is anything different to a normal car? I think with a lot of these, and you can watch a kind of run through of Electric Cars 101 up there, but the regenerative braking is what's unusual. And so to describe that in its easiest way is when I take my foot off the accelerator, the car slows right down, and that's recouping the energy of slowing down back in to kind of increase your range. And in this, it's really, really good. It's actually one pedal driving, and I'd say I've touched the brake pedal like 6 or 7 times in the week and the 400 kilometers that I've driven in this. You really do become very used to driving with just that one foot, and it is very good. Most importantly, it's called the I pedal in this, and it can be quickly turned off if that's not what you like. But personally, drive with it for a day or two and you'll adore it. You can't help but like that button to get out of the Mustang. Now, I think Ford have done a splendid job of creating a slightly, or not even slightly, vastly more premium car. It kind of reminds me of how Seat have branched off with Cupra to have their more premium car, and this, it's brilliant. It actually does feel the value that it costs. And being truthfully honest, I was a little bit skeptical. I went to the launch, I went for a drive, I said, yeah, this is nice, but the price is up. But nowadays cars are getting more and more expensive, and a Golf could sometimes be into the mid 40s. And this is just in another league. And I love a Golf, but this thing is brilliant. It's fully electric. It's got a really good range. When I collected it, it genuinely had over 500 kilometers, and I've done about 400 already, and every single one of them has been comfortable. It's been easy to drive, and it's just been a pleasure. Now, hopefully you enjoyed this review. If you did, please make sure to subscribe. And of course, if you'd like to search for any cars for sale from over 1,000 trusted dealerships around the country, then hit the link up there. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.